back to another episode of Do It Yourself with Burgess. Today we're working on a 2007 Honda Accord 3.0 6-cylinder. We're going to be changing the idler pulley and the belt tensioner pulley, the whole housing unit. Let's get started. Okay, so you can hear the noise that it's making. One way to check is to take a long screwdriver, like this one here, and you can actually place it on the nut, on the bolt itself, and put your ear to the screwdriver, and you will be able to hear that it's going bad. So I've already done that, so we know what the problem is, and we're going to get right at it. What you're going to need will be the screwdriver I just showed you. You're going to need 14 millimeter. That's going to be for both this one here and the nut, the bolt that'll go here. So, and then you will have a 12 millimeter to take this one off right here. First thing we're going to do is grab our 10 millimeter and disconnect our battery. Just for safety, we don't want anything kicking on while we're working with the belt. Alright, now we've got our battery disconnected. So now we need to move this reservoir out of the way. It pulls right up out of the bracket pretty easily, actually. We can get that up out of the way because we can tuck it back there because we're going to need that room to get in there and get these apart. First thing we're going to have to do is get that serpentine belt loosened up and off of there. Alright, now we're going to want to use the longer ratchet handle that you have, the better. If you've got a breaker bar, this happens to be a fairly large breaker bar. The longer it is, the better to get this belt off. So we're going to get on that tensioner pulley right there, and then we're just going to ease it over until it's loose enough to get the belt off, and then ease it back. So that'll allow us to take that off of there. Now, if you don't know the directions of your belts, don't take it all the way off, or you can take a picture of it. Take your phone down there, your camera, and take a photograph so you know the direction all the belt will run. That way you don't have trouble getting it back on later. Now we've got our belt off out of the way. This pulley here is going to be left-handed threads, which means we're going to turn it the opposite way that you would normally take the bolt out. So normally we would be turning it counterclockwise to take it out. This one we're going to go backwards the other way. So there, and we'll back this one out of there. That'll get that pulley out of our way. Alright, now we've got a smaller socket, so we just need to break this one loose. This one's kind of tight. So, if you keep backing this out, you're going to get your ratchet stuck. So what I've done is I've broken it loose, and now I'm going to take that bolt out by hand. So, as long as it's loose enough, if not, you can use a wrench to work it back out, but if you keep using your socket, you're just going to get it wedged in there. And you won't be able to pull the bolt all the way out, so you'll have to leave it in there until you take the whole unit out. because the bolt's pretty long. Okay, so we've got it loose, but it won't come out, so we'll leave it there, and then we'll have to work on getting our 12mm down here. You won't be able to see it, but it's down there and it's in sort of an awkward spot, but we'll have to use an extension and we'll get down there and get it. Alright, so now I've got on there with the extension. Ooh, there goes the wrench. Good thing we get the magnet. Pull it right back out of there. It's always handy to have a magnet when something like this happens. Alright, now that we've got the ratchet back, we're back on it. I'll loosen it right up. Once we get that out of there, the whole piece will come right out. Okay, now that we've got that bottom bolt out, one thing you gotta watch when you take this out, there's a nut right here that slips into this top pulley where the pulley bolt goes. You don't want to lose that. Drop it in, because if your replacement housing, it probably will not come with that. So this will slide right out of here, and you'll need that to put in your new one for your new bolt. Now this particular one, the replacement one I bought, is threaded, so we won't need to reuse this. I can put this to the side. This one will just be threaded straight in. Okay, so now that we have our idler and tensioner pulleys off, if you remember, we couldn't pull this bolt out while it was inside, which means we won't be able to put this back in if you were to install the new one starting here. So what we have to do is take the bolt out, and we'll have to insert it into our new one before we start, because otherwise once we get it in there we won't be able to get this one to slide in, because there won't be room for it to fit. So now we can begin our install. Alright, so now we can move this down, get this into place. It can be a little difficult to get down in there. There's not much room, as you can see. Get the idler bolt started here. See if we can get it going by hand. And then, before I tighten that bolt all the way in, we're going to get our other bolt started, so we don't run into any problems having it out of place. If you tighten this other one down all the way, you won't be able to move it to get this one lined in there. Alright, now we've just about got that bottom bolt tightened in. I'd say that's about the hardest part of the install, is lining that bolt in, because you cannot see where it goes, so you just got to keep moving it around till you find it. It's just so tight in there. So we'll get that tightened all the way up, and then we'll tighten our idler pulley and move on from there. Alright, now we've got that bottom one done. Now we're gonna get on this one if we can. I have to use that wrench again. It's such a tight squeeze. Yep. So the ratchet was a pretty tight fit in here. I just went ahead with the wrench and was able to tighten this down all the way. Got it good and tight. It's not going anywhere. So now we'll just have to get our belt back in, and then put back the reservoir, and we should be good to go. Okay, now I've got my belt fed back through everywhere it goes. After you get this back on the pulley, the tensioner pulley, you're going to want to go back and double check and make sure that all your belts are seated properly before you try and start the car. So we'll just go ahead, Move that tensioner over. Slide the belt back on. Now, you're going to want to go through and just check. Make sure everything is seated properly in the grooves and everything is where it belongs. See, I've got one back here that did not seat. Throw the back, I don't know if you can see it right there, so I'm going to have to loosen it up and do it again. Alright, so there wasn't enough room, so I actually had to take the belt back off the pulley. Get it back on there. Now we'll double check it again. It's very important you get them all seated in the grooves the way they're supposed to be. Because if they're not, you could break a belt and then you'll just be right back at it again. Everything looks good, so we'll get our reservoir back in place. It should just slide right back in there. And you're done. Yep, as you can see now, we got rid of that whiny sound. It's all taken care of. And that would be your 3.0 6-cylinder model. There is a 4-cylinder model and it takes a different pulley. So make sure before you go and buy it that you get the correct one. That concludes this video. I hope if you learned something or I helped you out, taught you something you didn't know, please hit that subscribe button, man. That really helps me out a lot. If you hit the subscribe button, I'll keep showing you videos and we'll just keep learning together. Thanks. Bye.